week's episode of Soul Eater Not saw the return of the Thompson sisters, Liz and Patty, the dual-wielding weapons of Death the Kid. They're ready to pop a cap right in your ass and right into your heart. This week's episode of Soul Eater Not was probably my favorite episode thus far, and not just because it had Liz and Patty and a really funny cameo sequence from Death the Kid, but because we actually got some character development from Sugami, the main character, believe it or not. She even went through her second weapon transformation sequence, and considering we're on episode 6, that's a pretty big deal. And the other thing I really liked about this episode is at the very end they're starting to build up this other story, which is involving the third Gorgon sister and the traitors of the DWMA. And it's going into some pretty dark territory, so I'm really interested to see how that's going to tie into the story of Sugami, Mei-Mei, and Anya. But the reason this episode was good, like I said, is because Sugami is starting to change a little bit. She's starting to become a little more confident. She wants to become more toughened and hardcore. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that her and her friends have been watching a lot of CSI. In fact, the episode actually opened up with this really funny scene where they're hanging out at the Death Buck Cafe, and Sugami and her friends were watching this CSI-styled anime show where all the characters on the show have this, like, street punk lingo, and they love it. In fact, Mei-Mei and Anya are emulating this style with the way they're talking and the way they're jutting their, like, bottom lips out. It's really, really funny. It's definitely one of the highlights of humor from this week's episode. And when they see all this stuff, that's when they were like, oh, we gotta be just like this. We gotta be tough as hell if we're gonna be at the DWMA. And lucky for them, they actually end up running into Liz and Patty. And Anya is not going to stand for any of this because they try to hold them up for money and they decide they're just going to go into a back alley and start fighting. And this is when they learn that Liz and Patty are pretty damn hardcore. Just the fact that they're pistols makes them really dangerous. And the fact that there's two of them and that they can reverse their transformation sequences makes them even more dangerous. And I love how they actually end up defeating both Anya and Sugami, where first it's actually Liz holding Patty who's transformed into the gun, then they go behind them, and then it's Patty who's holding Liz who transformed into the gun, and I'm guessing they just fire the gun really close to Anya's head, and it just freaks her out, and she hits the ground on her knees, and it's a great scene. But what's really cool here is this is when Sugami starts to become really intrigued by Liz and Patty, and that's where the big story this week comes in, where every day Sugami keeps going back to the cafe to sort of to test herself, and to see what's the big deal with Liz and Patty anyway, because she frankly just thinks they're really awesome. I mean, aside from the fact that they just seem like they're really hardcore and they can handle themselves, they also just happen to be pretty cool, and they're also very pretty. And Sugami sort of sees them as sort of like a role model. And there's a scene later in the episode where they're hanging out at the cafe and Liz and Patty are working there. And they just happen to be really shitty waitresses, by the way. They won't take your order right. They'll give you whatever the hell they want. They clock in, they clock out, they leave. They don't give a crap about this job. But they have to do it because they're being monitored by the DWMA. And there's a scene where one of the customers is starting to get really pissed off. And Liz is about to deck this dude right in the face. And Sugami jumps in the way and ends up getting punched in the head. And she falls down, and when she gets up, she starts bleeding from her head, and then she immediately starts screaming. It's a pretty funny scene. And even after all this, Sugami still comes back to the restaurant the very next day to confront them both. And they're actually kind of taken back by this. They actually think she's got some guts. And this is, of course, just to show that these two are going to start to warm up just a little bit and have a bit of a character change, especially because they are going to have to team up with Death the Kid later. And there is a cameo scene from him this week, which is frankly just one of the funniest things this week. It, of course, involves his obsession with symmetrical things, and it also involves Sugami as well. Check it out. It'll definitely give you a good chuckle. But the episode actually ends really, really dark when we go back to a scene with Sid, Akane, and Clay, and they're going to this prison where the traitor is being held. And then this guy just happens to escape, beating the crap out of this guard, and you get to see there's this one guy in his cell who has all of his blood just written all over the wall, which is just a warning from all of them. The other reason that I really like this scene is that it completely contrasts with the rest of the episode. We just had this nice, cute, bubbly scene where Sugami just poured her guts out to Liz and Patty, and then all her other friends come to the cafe, and Liz and Patty start to warm up to all of them, giving us a little bit of hope for the future. And then we get this scene where there's just blood and guts all over the walls. It's completely crazy, and it's friggin' awesome. And I just can't wait to see how that story's gonna tie in. I can definitely see Sugami maybe getting a little more stronger and being something of a threat to this third Gorgon sister, if that's where they're going with this. I really can't predict anything. And with a preview for next week, I can't predict anything either because it looks like we're actually going to have some more cameos from Maka and Soul. But where's Black Star and Tsubaki? How come they only get one cameo in the first episode? I want to see more from my favorite freaking ninja, Black Star. But otherwise, pretty good episode right here. So let me just give you the rundown. The animation and the artwork was pretty nice this week. All of the character artwork was good. Obviously, the biggest thing that's going to be a change for some folks is that the art style is slightly different. Liz and Patty don't necessarily look as cute and bubbly as they did before, especially Patty, but they still look pretty good. They're instantly recognizable for who they are. The action sequence this week where you had Liz and Patty going up against Anya and Sugami was really awesome. It was very brief, but it was exciting and cool. Just getting to show us that, there can be some action in the series. The humor and the voice acting was pretty good this week, especially in the very beginning of the part when they were trying to talk with all the punk lingo and everything. And that little bit at the end of the episode really has got me intrigued for what's going to be happening later in Soul Eater Not. If you're a fan of the original Soul Eater anime or manga series, I do recommend Soul Eater Not. It is a very nice companion piece to that series. It'll let you appreciate some of the other characters a little bit more, and maybe a little bit more about the actual world of Soul Eater. So check it out, guys. 8 out of 10. Pretty good episode. If you guys had a chance to check out this week's episode of Soul Eater Not, I would love to hear your thoughts about it, and you can tell me with your comments below. What did you think about seeing Liz and Patty again? What's the deal with all this crazy traitor stuff that's going on with the third Gorgon sister? You can tell me your theories with your comments below. Remember guys, before you leave, make sure and hit that like button so you can give this video a thumbs up. Really, really easy to do. Helps out our videos tremendously. If you haven't already, make sure and subscribe to the channel so you can see all of our latest anime and manga reviews. You can also check us out on Facebook and on Twitter. I'll put links to those in the description box below. So, I'll see you next time, guys. Super Kami Guru 9000. Out.